Hello everyone. Are you someone who has never journaled before and you're interested in maybe starting? Or are you someone who's tried to journal and it didn't work out? Either you just couldn't keep up the pace, you expected it to be maybe something you had to do every day and it just didn't work out. Well, stay tuned because maybe I'll change your mind. Or are you someone who journals all the time and you just need new inspiration? This video, I'm going to talk about my journals and how much they've meant to me and how they've changed my life and my mental health. I'm Krista. This is Finding Shalom. This is a page I built so you could follow along in my journey to find shalom, to find true peace. If that's something you're interested in, hit subscribe. I'd love for you to follow along. Now let's talk about journals. Well, what are the benefits of journals? Journaling has been with me since I was a teen, and I had a really hard teenage life. Just a lot going on in my little world, and it was my only escape. It was my escape to be able to write down my feelings and write down my fears and write down my frustrations and just get it out, because I couldn't in my environment speak what was wrong with me. So it started pretty early on, but I carried it on into adulthood, and it's been in many, many different forms. It's kind of morphed through the years and matured with me. Before it was just like a daily check-in, and now it's a little something deeper, all the way to the point of me studying my word per year and kind of digging deep into that. So I just thought today I would show you just a few of the ways that journaling has, improved my life and the way that I do it. And maybe you might like it as well. I mean, the benefits are wonderful. Not everybody is a journaling person, but I get stuck in my head where all the different thoughts and everything are just circling and circling and circling, and until I get it out, they can just sit there in confusion. Sometimes until I write it out, I don't even know what I'm feeling or what my problem is. And so getting it out is a big therapy for me. It's also helped me to look back and see myself. It's helped me encourage myself. It's helped me dig and listen to God in the scriptures. It's helped me, if I'm in a struggling time, I might pull out my old journals and see what God did for me in the past. Maybe it's a time of remembering that the God of my past, who did mighty things, is the same God that I serve today, and so he'll do mighty things again. So to me, it's incredible for my mental health and for my spiritual health, and it could be for you as well. There's a lot of studies that actually show that journaling is very healthy for you. In the past, it was a very popular thing. Most famous people have a journal through the years. I mean, even Thomas Edison, even if you consider it all of the different times he wrote the ways that the light bulb didn't work, he was keeping a journal through the whole thing so that he wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. Well, the same thing in our life. And, if you go back into history, all the history books written, everything, it was a journal. Even on the war and battlefields, it was them writing down a journal of the day's events. So journals have been around with us since the beginning of time. Many of the books of the Bible are a journal. Psalms especially is definitely David's journal, the ones that he wrote. So journaling is kind of in us from the beginning. And it benefits us in so many different ways. But there's all different kinds of journaling. So what are the types of journals and journaling that there are out there? Yours might be a prayer journal, and I don't even think I have it here. These are all my journals in here. Sometimes I journal I don't even have the one that I have one that's in my nightstand, and many times what I would do is just write Dear God letters, and I did that for probably 2 months straight, where every day I just did a practice of writing him because I was in a hard time. And so I would just say, Dear God, thank you for this day. I'm waking up and I'm just embracing you, and please help me. Please help me to be able to make it through the day. Help me to find the answer of what I'm looking for. Whatever that was, my prayer journal is just letters to God. So that one is just letters. Most of my journals are actually just a mix of everything. So you can have, the prayer journal, you can do, like I said, in letter form, or I have one here that is in, let me find it, list form. So you might just be someone who wants to keep a record. So here we have, I've made the list of what the prayer request was, and then I put a box next to it. And so as soon as that prayer request is answered, I put a check, and usually it doesn't look like I did on this one. I will put then a date next to it when God answered that prayer. Sometimes you go back and you read your journals and you're like, I know he answered it this year. That was answered, but you don't have a date, but at least put the year. So that God is answering prayers. This one is talking about my fear and my doubt. Fear has gripped on my life at this point. Doubt that God doesn't love me enough to come to my rescue, or better yet, allow me to have peace. Then I end up reading some passages out of the Bible, and when I come back, I actually see that God answered the prayers. It may have been a year later, but he did answer the prayers. So it's really good to be able to just kind of put that down on paper and be able to go back and read that as you go. Sometimes it's just in my journals, it's a daily check-in. I always put, and I don't know why I didn't here, but I always put the day of the week, the month, the date, and I usually have the year. I at least have it quite often, so that I know when I was, expressing that. And sometimes that's just going through, it's talking about peace and shalom and what the meaning of shalom is. And it's a lot of my just daily thoughts about that. This is, of course, in January when I do a lot of deep thinking and kind of rethinking for the new year. And so I do a lot of diving into whatever word of the year I'm doing. I'll do another video on word of the year next week. But you can, maybe your journal is just you checking in every day, or maybe it's checking in every week, or maybe it's checking in once a month. One of the reasons people get discouraged and they fail at journal writing is they think it has to be like daily, or it has to be on a regular. It is good if you set some time aside to do that, but there are times in here when I wrote in it every day. There's other times I wrote in it once a week. Then there's other times that I maybe got one entry in for the month because it was a chaotic month and I'm just catching up. Or there's been times when I struggled or something like that and I kind of vanish for a couple months. And then I just jump back in wherever I was. I don't worry about, well, now I can't journal because I've missed a month. You just journal as you feel like it. Journaling is not an obligation. Journaling is an inspiration. And when you feel inspired to do it, that's when you want to do it. So that was my daily check-in. And that was my prayer journal on that. Some days it might just be, and I do this probably more than anything, is what you call a brain dump. Or that's a nice word. I usually call it vomit on paper. So there are times when I just don't even know what's in my head and I'm just stressed and I'm worried and I'm asking God and I'm trying to figure out what's next and all that kind of stuff. And there are times that I do what I just call vomiting on paper. I don't care about spelling. In fact, most of my journals, everything is spelled wrong. I am not a good speller. I have a reading disability. I wasn't the best in school, but this is a place I can be me. This is a place that nobody corrects my spelling. This is a place that only God and I know about. So I can be me and not worry about forming a sentence correctly. I can worry about not having messy writing, or I'm just pouring out my heart. On this one, I was really pouring out my heart. You know, right through here it says, I don't know what peace feels like. This was years ago. I don't remember any peace growing up. What does home feel like? It's not peace. I've always wanted it to feel like peace. I've been struggling and working hard my entire adult life to create this so-called peace. I can't come to peace in the middle of a storm because I don't know what that foundation feels like. This is a time when I was reading a book, and the book says, "You are home to me." And that one sentence just kind of shook me to my core, because I said to myself during this year, I don't know what year this was, but I had realized that I didn't know what home felt like or what peace in a home felt like at that point. And so I am just crying out to God, just saying, I don't even know what home feels like or peace feels like. So how could I say you feel like home to me? So, you know, this was just me vomiting on paper. This is just me, you know, letting it all out. And believe it or not, often when I do this vomit on paper, or to be nice, a brain dump, God will, in the next day or two, or maybe a little longer, he will start to answer those things and show me. So I haven't read ahead to see, you know, what God did for me at this time, but I do know many years later, here I am, and God has showed me what home feels like. God has showed me what love feels like. God has showed me what true peace is, that I'm no longer having to find false peace, because that false peace is so disappointing when you think this is the answer, this is the road to peace, and you follow that and it's not peaceful. So that's just a brain dump. So if you're journaling, you could do it in many different formats. I always like to put what day of the week, the month, the date, and the year, just so I can go back and see where God has brought me. That's another point of, you know, a benefit of journaling, is watching God work in your life and watching yourself grow and mature and go, wow, you know, there I was, but now look where I am. So that's another really, really exciting thing. Sometimes I might just visualize. Talk about this year, obviously, was a year that God, in fact, what year is this? And I'll probably on some of these go through them year to year. This was on Shalom Take 3, which love was my theme that year. And it's the year that I learned the love of God and learned how to love others and learn true love. But before I got to that point, I actually had to do some excavation. I had to kind of pull up all the death that was inside of me. And you'll be shocked at this one, but sometimes you just need to visualize it. And what I did is I actually created gravestones. And then I sat and put all of the things that felt like death to me. And, you know, letting go of, it also says letting go of my expectations in so many areas. I found out that year that it was my expectations that were creating a lot of the problem. And God gave me the verses, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. So although I was kind of vomiting on paper basically, but I was creating a visual of the death in my life and the things that felt scary to me and felt like impossible. I put those all here, and yet God brought me the verse, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And as the pages of that journal go, my next one is actually about letting go. The very next page, letting go and don't give up and focus. So, it's myself encouraging myself. So journaling has really been important to all of those kind of things. Trying to think some of the other ways. Questions to God. That is another huge one. So especially with the fact I'm sitting here in my sewing studio in my backyard, and just a year ago this didn't exist. And just a year ago we had decided that I was gonna, through the COVID thing and that my lease was expiring, that I was going to close my bridal business I had had for 16 years, but I didn't know what the next step was. And I spent last summer just pouring out my heart to God of, I don't know what's next. I can't see it. And for a while there, I was so busy, I didn't get a chance to journal. And so it all just floated in my head and floated in my head. And it was just like, I don't know. I can't think. I don't, no matter which way I think, I can't come up with a solution. And it wasn't until I started journaling it where I wrote out those questions to God. What is next? Do you have something else for me? Am I supposed to open up another door? Am I going to go back to work? Am I going to sew out of my home? But by the way, my home is too small to sew in. I don't have a sewing room. And all those questions I just poured out to God. And it was almost a year ago to today. It was sometime in August. My husband and I just, at the end of a long day, walked out and sat in our backyard in the corner. I grabbed a glass of wine because it had been a really long day and I just needed to just sit in the lounge chairs with my legs going, sitting out. And it was at that moment that as we began to talk and look at the house, because we were kind of at the back of the property looking forward, like, how am I going to sew in this house? Like, we could look at that room and that room and that room, but then we'd lose our guest room, but then we'd lose, and that room's not big enough, and where are the bride's going to dress? And all those little questions that we kind of looked over to the side and saw the garage that was, we have a little one-car detached garage. It was just sitting there holding all of our stuff. And I journaled it, and God brought an answer a few days later in the form of redo the garage, make it a studio. And here I am a year later sitting here, and I journaled a year ago in confusion, what is next? So journaling has just been an amazing, amazing for me. I hope that you can do it. You could also there's other ones where I can't even find them all in here, where I do a Bible study. So my journals are just kind of mixed. So day to day. So for a series, I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to study the book of Philippians, or I'm going to study the book of Romans. So every day I will read some verses, maybe a few verses, or maybe I'll do a chapter for one whole week and just kind of sit in it for a while. And I'll write things out, and I'll then look up verses that connect to that, and I'll write those out. And somehow God in the midst of that also speaks to me. So those are in my journals. The other thing I do in my journals is kind of weekly check-ins or to-do lists. I even put to-do lists in my journal sometimes. Most of my to-do lists are in my my schedule book, but I know a lot of people who combine both. The bullet journal is really popular right now all over YouTube, and that is good to have your goals and your daily things. These journals that I use are more of my answers and connections to God and trying to find out what goals he wants me to set and what is the next step. And sometimes it's just him sitting with me and comforting me. Sometimes it's me going back and just reading through and finding encouragement. One of the journals that I noticed that I had so many journals, and sometimes I just needed a quick pick-me-up. Sometimes I'll write down little, like I heard something on the radio and or I saw something on a Facebook post, and it was just like something that just kind of gives you a little encouragement for that day. So often I will write those in my journals too, so that when I flip through, I get these little pieces of encouragement. But one of the years, my parents had gotten me this, I think for my birthday. It says, "Keep calm and have a cupcake." And it's the cutest little journal. But I thought, you know what? It's a great place to maybe go through and write down all those little pieces of wisdom, the little notes from sermons, or a little scripture here, a little, here's one I come across often. What feels like the end is often the beginning. Isn't that true? That is exactly my year. It felt like the end, and yet it was the beginning. So be careful. This one is like, be careful limiting God according to your energy, your circumstances, your finances, your position, or your abilities, because God is bigger. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Your impossible situation is nothing to God. Oh my gosh. Here's one. To be a mature Christian, you must act above your emotions. How true is that? And how many times do my emotions get in the way? Days are long, but the years are short. So, live life to the fullest. Here's a list of all these promises. So basically, I know if I'm discouraged, I can come here and just look up a quick promise that will just kind of give me a little bit of strength for that day. This is a great one that that I keep really close to me. I don't keep it very far from me. I'm trying to find some other ones for you. Well, here's one. He promises peace to his people, which is Psalms 85:8. Call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you, and you will honor me. I can't even read my own writing. If the Son makes you free, you are free indeed. And that one is actually my word of the year this year, is freedom. And if the Son has made me free, I am free indeed. Nobody can put me in a prison of my emotions or my doubts or my fears. I only can do that. And so I need to not do that. Here's another one. Sometimes hardship comes as a result of obeying God. Do it anyway. Be God's woman in God's place, doing God's work God's way. But anyway, so that's a different kind of journaling. That one is, you might have a journal that is just for just some quick encouragement. You might have a journal that is just you writing some letters to God each morning, saying, "Good morning, God. I'm going to need strength today." You might have a journal that's a list of prayer requests that you check off and then you date when they are done. You might have one that's a daily check-in. Hey, God, today I had ice cream and it was so good. Just those kind of things. You might have one that is just you're vomiting on page, or your brain dump where you're just blah, 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 But whatever your journal is, I encourage you, whether it's journaling while you're reading the Bible. Often I actually journal inside my Bible. You can get Bibles that actually have room on the sides to do a little journaling or a little note writing. And also, when God speaks to me in parts of the Bible, I always date it. Like, oh my gosh, that was exactly what I needed for today. And I'll put the date. because I want to come back to that and remember. And I can look through some of my old Bibles and actually see really hard times when I was in the pit that God gave me certain verses to help me continue or to climb out of that pit. So it's just really, really good. I hope you guys will consider journaling. If you already journal, tell me about it. Tell me what you do. What kind of journaling do you do? What is your style? If you've never journaled before, but you're encouraged to journal, then put that in the comments. Tell me that you're starting. Show me a picture of your journal. The other thing is don't compare. Here's the biggest thing. You can look up YouTube and see bullet journals with these beautiful, they do all this artwork and they do just all this craziness, and it's just gorgeous. And that's not my style. I do draw things out in there, but a lot of times they look like a squiggly line that says, this is how I feel right now. I'm so confused, and I'll put all the different things that are all circling my mind and I don't know. So my journals are not always pretty. Sometimes they are. Sometimes I have fun and doodle and stuff like that. Other times they're not. But don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare your journals to my journals. Your journal is your personal walk. It's your quiet time. You can't do it wrong, and anything is right. So, it's good to be inspired by others. It's good to look on YouTube and see different ones and maybe try some things. My journals are all over the place. I think I've tried it all, and I kind of fall back into what's comfortable. And the best journaling is journaling that you're going to do. The best journaling is something you're going to complete. So I would say, don't compare. What kind of supplies are you going to need? Well, first you'll need a journal. So you need a journal, and you could do, my journals, it has to be very personal to you. Go out. I now take myself on a date about every fall. I go and get coffee, and I go to the local bookstore. We have a Barnes & Noble here that has the coffee place. I get myself the coffee, and I walk through Barnes & Noble in the store, and I just kind of linger, and I look at all the journals until one speaks to me. And you can see I've been all over the board. This is one of my younger ones, when kittens, all the way to when I was more of a gardener, to, my Paris one, all the way to when I started doing Shalom over and over again. I started getting these kind of more Shalom-y feeling. So, it's a personal choice. All you really need is a notebook of any kind. It could be a pretty one, a journal, or it could just be a notebook, and maybe some pens. I happen to really love, I think these are Frixion pens. They are erasable. Now, the only problem about that is that I did write an invoice once, and here at the shop I steam, and when the steam went up to the top of the bag where the invoice was, it disappeared. So this is kind of like disappearing ink. So if you don't want anybody to read your journals down the road, that's probably a really good thing. But it also, because I spell things incorrectly, and also sometimes I have a disconnect between my brain, and I don't know why I'll write the wrong word that was in my, so I love something erasable. But just any pen, a gel pen, anything that just writes really, really smoothly. If you want, get it in some different colors so you can have a little fun with it. But really all you need is one pen and one notebook, whether it be a journal or anything like that. So, and just start writing down when you come across something amazing, some encouragement to get you going. I hope you'll try it. I hope it's something that you'll try, and then you'll come back and tell me. But it's been incredible for me, and it's been part of my journey to Shalom. It's been part of my journey to find peace, because mine morphed from, it was the, they were more the just writing my daily frustrations and all that. And then it morphed into the word of the year, where I'd get a new journal at the beginning of the year and I'd choose a word for that year and write it at the front, kind of like this. And then I'd break it down and say what that word meant, and then I would start that year. So it's kind of morphed into that, and it morphed into me really discovering what true peace was. So I hope you'll do it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And once again, shalom, and until next time.